We are very pleased that Mr. Algirdas Saudargas have accepted to chair this panel. We know Mr. Saudargas because he was already in the first Meta Forum in Brussels last November in the opening session. So this was in Brussels, and so we are very glad now to meet again in Budapest. So Mr. Saudargas is a member of the European Parliament and a speaker of, it's a small but very important language in Lithuania. He's a specialist of international politics, and I believe he's very interested in languages and hopefully in language technologies. The chair is yours.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Good afternoon, everybody. And before saying a few words, I would like, first of all, to introduce our distinguished panelists. Those already we have listened, our colleague from Latvia, and besides me, I have representatives from other Baltic states, from the eastern shore of Baltic Sea. First of all, Kadri Vider, Estonian Ministry of Education and Research. And next to here is Rimvydas Vaštakas, my colleague in Lithuanian politics, and now he represents as Vice Minister, Minister of Transport and Communication of Lithuania. Later on, we go further from Baltic Sea to the North Sea. And I would like to represent Mr. Peter Spyns. I'm right, I hope, pronunciation. He will represent Dutch Language Union, and Madam Sabine Kirchmeier-Andersen, Director of the Danish Language Council, Copenhagen. What is really in common for those people represented and sitting in the panel today, I will find in the last picture was Hans Kreitz in the morning presented to us a vision, a timetable of visions, and there have been 3 strips on this vision. First, coming to the end, already in internal communication in the MetaNet community, already we are approaching the finish in 2011 as to follow this timetable, this timeline. Now we are in full speed of communication with language technology community, with stakeholders and others. And the last strip is, which should begin in 2011, is to bring our vision to politicians, to the broader society, to those who are making decisions. And really, those people who are here, they are not only working there with us on this vision, not only contributing to this vision, but after the meeting, I believe they will come to their governments in this or that capacity. They are communicated with their governments and will bring this vision of MetaNet to their governments. So thank you very much for, once again for kind words, and I would like to begin this panel and to discuss what was presented. My congratulations for all of us that MetaNet already made a good contribution of those white papers. We can begin with the broad and general vision of multilingual Europe, because the theme of today's discussion is, of this panel is, are Europe's languages in danger? I would stress Europe's languages, the stress on Europe. Can Europe really take this challenge of dangers for European languages? That is the question. Now I would like to start with Kadri Vider, I should say. I'm sorry, Kadri Vider, Estonian Ministry of Education and Research. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you. The questions what we had before will focus on the question what our country is doing with regard to taking an active role in language technology, research and innovation. And I tried to answer to that question. First of all, according to the Constitution, the official language of Republic of Estonia is, of course, Estonian, and it's the state obligations to preserve the Estonian language. So it means also that if we have problems, of course, known to many other languages, which are the greatest threats, for example, a drop of the number of mother tongue speakers. We have only maybe less than 1 million speakers who speak Estonian as a mother tongue. Another trait is excessive influence from foreign languages. And of course, the focus this event is language technology. So how this influences our languages. And it is difficulty in keep up with the bigger languages in terms of language technology. But measures necessary for the preservation and the development of the Estonian language are defined in the development strategy of the Estonian language, as well in a development plan, which started this year. And there is a special chapter in this development plan, a chapter called Estonian language technology. And this declares the main goal of Estonian language technology, which is to develop technology support for the Estonian language at a level that would allow functioning of Estonian in the modern information society. So this is our main goal in language technology. And for that purpose, we have launched some national programs. First of them started at 2006, and the continuing program started this year. And with these national programs, we try to keep up and to develop Estonian language in information society. Maybe it's shortly the situation in Estonia.
Thank you very much. We are a bit late on schedule. You saved some of our time and saved more time for waiting after us the computer Watson will come after us. So now I pass the floor to Rimvydas Vaštakas, and we move south from Estonia to Lithuania on the same Baltic Sea shore. Please, Rimvydas.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this event, and I like the presentations, and well, everything is really interesting. I am the first time in such an event, and there are many new things I see. But I would like to touch two subjects for today, and maybe I do not start to explain what Lithuania does, because you can read everything in a special information book. And the themes I would like to touch are one of them, the future or the destiny of languages of small countries. And Lithuania, also as Estonia, we have just 4 million in total language users, and we are in 144th position in the world. And if we look at the influence of a market on our languages of small countries, then you will see that, for example, Google Translate, it doesn't work for Lithuanian language, or it works very poorly. If we talk about there was a Mercedes or Daimler presentation, there is no Daimler with Lithuanian languages implemented. There is also neither BMW or Volkswagen with Lithuanian languages. I think the same Danish or Dutch or Latvian language. And that means, and even for today, in today exhibition, I took advertisement leaflets, a few leaflets, just, I didn't find any language from our small countries. There is here on the leaflets 7, 9, this is Japanese, Chinese, Russian, and so on. That means that the market, which works like a free market, it doesn't take care about small countries, about languages of small countries. They need a market. They need a big portion of a cake. And that means that I'm coming to the decision of the Lithuanian government that the main target for Lithuania is preserving the Lithuanian language as the cornerstone of Lithuanism in the world. And what should be done? What should be done for this reason in the future? If we go the same way like it is now, these languages, all languages, will start to disappear. For example, if we will, as it was shown also in one of the presentations today, if we will start to build the trains for the big countries as a train like a technological decision, like as a machine translation, then for small countries, that will be enough money just for one wheel, or maybe for bigger ones, for engine, but not for the train. And I would like to propose that we would think, every representative for all the countries, what kind of decision should be made that we should build the one normal big train for all languages, because we can then ask ourselves the main question, which language will become the last one in the European Union? Could you guess? I wouldn't like to guess. And this is it for first theme. And the second is much more easy because it's an ask. When Lithuanians, for example, try to connect the internet, and I also a user of internet, 61% now we have users of internet of all citizens of Lithuania. But normally we would pay, for example, for a month, amount for a month is from 5 to 8 euros per month with, with access, full access without any limits. And now we see that, for example, it was very nice to hear from Google representative that he can translate, for example, translate the menu in the restaurant. But I know the rule from Lithuania. When we go outside Lithuania, we have to switch off the mobile internet, because 1 megabyte costs 2.5 euros. And very small price in the hotel, just 19 euros for 1 day. These prices, they are shocking prices for Lithuanian citizens. I think the same for other countries. And that's why it's an ask for representatives, before also from representative from European Council, that we would need to equalize these gaps, that internet roaming should be the same price as in the countries, but not the 10 or 20 or 100 times higher than in the countries. Then, of course, the feedback will come, how the translation, how other services work, and then we'll have much better situation than now, and the future will look bright. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Peter Spyns,
yes,
floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So, concerning the dangers for Dutch, we are a bit more in a more comfortable situation, as worldwide around 23 million people speak Dutch. So, as my colleague said, you can find the details in the appropriate booklet. But, and the fact that I have to explain a bit what the Dutch Language Union is, it is an intergovernmental organization between Belgium, Flanders, and the Netherlands, and now also Suriname is an associated member. And this organization dates from 1980. So already then, the governments of Belgium and the Netherlands have realized that it is important to have a language policy, and they created an intergovernmental organization for that. So, the Dutch Language Union was meant to kind of unify the language of the administrations in Belgium and the Netherlands, which of course was a bit, well, seen in retrospect a silly assignment because languages evolve, each has its own local jargon. But on the other hand, there's also a cultural notion, meaning to promote the Dutch language and literature, and also a societal challenge, so that, as also my predecessors have said, each citizen should be able to speak Dutch and use Dutch in any situation. Now, in 1980, there was not such much mention of language technology, but in 1999, the Dutch Language Union has created, together with the governments of then Flanders and the Netherlands, because Flanders is a northern part of Belgium where they speak Dutch, the HLT platform. So it was a meeting place for the government officials, and to start think about how to provide basic building blocks for a linguistic infrastructure for Dutch. So the first project was corpus for spoken Dutch, and in the end, later on, a BLARC, basic language resource kit, has been defined, and then later on, there was a jointly funded research program called STIVIN, which stands for Essential Language and Speech Resources for Dutch. So you see that the mere fact that you have an organization that is responsible to think about a language and linguistic policy, that's already a big instrument to, let's say, to safeguard the position of your language in a modern ICT society. Well, I'll stop here. Well, maybe one more thing, because in the previous sessions there has been the word IPR and so on, and how can we, well, it was not say oblige project collaborators to kind of donate their results to these new repositories. Well, one of the conditions for projects to participate in STIVIN was that at the end they had to transfer the ownership of the results to the Dutch Language Union. And the Dutch Language Union has created a kind of a sub-entity called the HLT Agency, and that's responsible to maintain and distribute these project results. So it's a kind of also government-funded, officially government-funded entity that takes care of the project results, so that they can be, if necessary, updated, that they don't lose their value, that they are not forgotten, and that then more researchers know where to find them, and also that industry knows where to find them, which is still a problem for the moment. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. And now Sabine Kirchmeier-Andersen, please, from Danish perspective.
Does this work? Yeah, good. I'm afraid I'm a little bit the naughty girl in this class, because I cannot report any great things that my government is doing at the moment for language technology. So I'll just say a little bit about the Danish language as it is. We are 5 million speakers, and we have the lucky situation that we are understood by 20 million people in Scandinavia. That's a good thing, though. The language has been spoken for 1,000 years. It has a rich writing tradition and all the characteristics that are normally for a language that is not threatened by extinction. Even so, until the beginning of the last century, Danish was actually also the official language in Norway and Iceland and Greenland and the Faroese. So it was a rather expansive language, such as many other European languages have been. So it's more in the state of diminishing, but far from dying out, people think. And there's only one minority language, which is German. So it's a rather monolingual nation. And for Danes, it has been so natural that Danish was the main language in the country that they even didn't bother to write it anywhere in the constitution. So they it's not even mentioned there. So for the Danes, the situation is rather new, that there are certainly so many different languages in the country. We have a lot of immigrants and we have a lot of English. English is spoken extensively in areas such as business life and higher education. And we are speaking about domain loss or diglossia in certain domains. And some researchers see this as a first step to language shift, whereas others are sort of more relaxed towards the problem. The Danish government has recently adopted a strategy of parallelism between English and Danish. And this is a rather new strategy. So they think that English and Danish should be sort of important languages in parallel. And this is, by the way, also a concept that the Nordic Council has adopted for the Scandinavian languages, so that English should be used together with the Scandinavian languages, but that of course everybody should have the opportunity to use their own languages. There are two Nordic conventions. There is the Nordic Language Convention that ensures every Scandinavian citizen or Nordic citizen to speak his own language in the other Nordic countries. And there is a language declaration which sets up the goal for language development. And there, language technology has a certain role. There is focus on MT and on terminology. It seems that in Sweden and Norway there is a bit more development than in Denmark for these areas, and even for minority languages as Sami there are substantial resources, even for Greenlandic. So the Nordic countries are in very different position. What the Danish government has done with this strategy of parallelism is not really clear at the moment. One should think that language technology should actually be used extensively in this situation, but nothing has really happened yet. And as you have seen on the screen also, that Danish is very often in one of the last groups of languages that have few resources, even though it considers itself as a strong language. I think I'll stop here. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for all the panelists. Really, we are on schedule, but I would like to prolong a bit because we started later, and to open probably floor for questions and comments to panelists. Maybe in exchange of views, you have found another comments. Please take the floor as well. But I myself would like to put a bit of pepper, so to say, or salt in these circumstances we have. We discussed this with Mr. Roberto Cincioni, who know very well how much money are there, and there is discussion how to distribute it. But I mentioned the vision of Pushkurai just at the end, and you would like to bring this vision to politicians. If you would like to bring vision to politicians, you must work how to present this vision with emotions. Because otherwise the budget will stay as it is. So to say, I would exaggerate a bit, but the question is, are Europe's languages in danger? The answer could be only, they are in danger, they are in terrible danger. Otherwise there will be no money. That is absolute axioma. So maybe Rimvydas, not because he's from Lithuania, but he's closer probably to politics, that he put most emotions in his speech. So that is my just advice. And that you are a scientific community, you are a business community, and you are rational people and speaking with rational arguments. But people who take decisions, they take decisions on the background of emotions. That is scientific result. That is not fantasy. Please read Antonio Damasio, you probably have read wonderful books, or recently Manuel Castells as well elaborated on that in Communicative Power about politics, and there are a lot of books by Lakoff on politics, which is really grounded on emotion. So before transferring to computers, who fortunately as yet lack emotions, so let us use in full our emotions here. Please, I open the floor. Maybe somebody, or maybe from panel, please, Sabine.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say emotion, because what I said was actually the general opinion on the situation in Denmark. And I think if you need to bring your emotions into play, you have to make people recognize that there actually is a problem. And I think one of the things that have been talked about here today was how much information do we give about language technology, how important it is, how it must be used, and so on. I mean, there has to be some sort of promotion of language technology, and has to be made more visible. In Denmark, for instance, it's very hard to get students of language technology at all, because nobody knows what it really is and where it is. And the talk about having language technology as a software category, I think is extremely important, because not everybody has the same awareness as some of our colleagues here.
More comments in the floor, please.
Okay, from what you are saying, it seems to be obvious that we cannot leave the market in order to have the necessary language technologies for the different European languages. I mean, it's obvious, and it means, therefore, that we need some political support in order to explain the importance and to cover those languages that the market will not cover by itself. Unfortunately, I mean, we have to consider that the situation in Europe is not comparable to what is the situation in South Africa, for example, or in India. We will see it tomorrow, where the governments decided to support their official or national languages, should it be 22 or 19 or 11. I mean, we don't do the same for the 23 European languages. I mean, we should check this situation. Now, if we go to funding, okay, we have to, let's say, if we consider that we have to cover those languages, all European languages, at least the official languages, if not more, how do you see the way to fund this effort? Should it be an effort which should be covered fully by the European Commission? Or should it be a shared effort with the member states? Or should it be covered by the member states? How do you see the economical model in order to respond to this political need?
Who would like? Rimvydas, please.
I'd like to react. Well, I would see this way, that the mechanism should be that not the money should be given not for each language separately, but for all languages at once. And it could be also together with, well, PPP project. It could be with the partners and so on, but not excluding any language of European Union. And then it is the equal machine, the big train, as you say, maybe not so big, but which is working in the same level every time for all the languages which exist in European Union. Then we have the equal rights for everybody, not to have just a wheel for one country and engine for other one. Thank you.
Okay. No, you please.
I think we have to have a kind of a joint mechanism. On the one hand, as my colleague says, in order to build a steam engine, you need a big framework. And there I think we look to Europe. And each country then has to somewhere add his small wheel, because maybe, like in a car, the one certain countries drive on the left, others have the steering wheel on the right. So there's you could have this organized spontaneously. We have the ERA-nets, and next to that, of course, you have purely national funding. One maybe it's just an idea, but it used to be that when people who were submitting EU projects, when you have to form a consortium, people were always looking for, 20 years ago it were the Mediterranean country, now it's more an Eastern European country. Why not kind of have as a hard or soft criterion, less or smaller or medium language? Because the Dutch Language Union is also part of the European Federation of National Institutes of Language. And one of the remarks and kind of demands or claims is that is that many, and it has also been said here, the bigger languages get the bulk of the research funding because you have to be innovative and because a lot of work has already happened on English and German, for instance. Of course, then more innovation goes to these languages, because if you do it for a smaller language, you have to repeat some kind in the same intellectual effort, and it's not innovative anymore. So if you have a kind of an obligation to really involve a smaller or medium language in this kind of consortia, you can have a kind of boost or convergence between well, the status of the language technologies in these countries. Another thing I would say is that you also need a kind of a monitoring unit. Again, the FNIL recommends a European language monitor, but why not have a kind of European speech and language technology monitor? You have started, well, you have the MetaNet reports. 10 years ago you had the Euromap. I think Rose Lockwood knows this very much. Also you and Danny. So the bad thing is that these initiatives, it's a project, it's finished, and then nobody talks about it for 5 years, and then 7 years later somebody reinvents that same wheel. Well, you should have it more at regular times, because then if you know the status of the language technology for the countries, for Europe, you could have even policy recommendations, as has been shown in one of the last slides of the previous presentation on the MetaNet overview. So this is more where you should have a kind of a permanent mechanism. Also in the low countries, we think this is something what should happen. And why not have a kind of a mechanism like you have in DG Enterprise? There they have the European Enterprise Network, and it's a call for centers. So it's a kind of a network of networks, but you have each 5 years, for instance, a call, and centers can put proposals on the table to act as a local hub for doing the local monitoring on their status of speech and language technology. And yet you have a kind of a higher level at the EU. I compare it ERA Watch, which is in another DG. You could have a kind of ELA Watch, European Language Area Watch. And this will be a result in all these different efforts. First of all, knowing of each other, exchanging information, and aligning funding. Well, that's my.
Yeah, I'll start where you stop, because this monitoring of the development, I think, is also very important. You're right. There is not only the MetaNet, there is the FNIL monitor, and there is also Clarin, and there is another initiative, Language Rich Europe, which is conducted by the British Council. So there are actually 3 different surveys going on in Europe at the same time, looking at language capacities in various countries. So it would be a very good thing to take all these initiatives now and to repeat these measurements. That would be a unique possibility to also see whether the future initiatives by the Commission, for instance, will have a success. So you can actually measure whether the ideas that you have will bring some good things to the countries. I think when it comes to initiatives, this picture of a train is quite interesting. You have a steam engine that runs in the front of the train, and then you have all the other carriages along. I don't think it's such a bad idea to use some of the bigger languages as a kind of steam engine, and to maybe use some extra money on those countries who are trying to keep up the pace. I think that's a very, very good thing. And these applications, trying to apply, for instance, MT systems to smaller languages, that should really be a priority so that we can learn from each other. And another idea would be to group similar languages. So that, for instance, the idea that we are working together in the Nordic languages, that gives us some strengths, and that could also be something that could be done in other areas, not for all languages, but for some. So one could think about making some calls that are going to some regions or to similar languages, so that they can bulk some of their efforts.
Thank you so much. Some really vivid discussion launched, and I would allow maybe a few other questions and we'll finish. Okay, please.
I think taking on the discussion which has just happened on how the mentoring can be done for the languages which are not yet at par with other languages with respect to the language technology development, there can be two mechanisms. One is that, like in India, we have northeastern part of the country, which is least developed. So at those kind of areas can be given an earmarking by the European Commission for funding. Like we have, compulsorily we have to spend some small part of the budget on those regions. So from that point of view, this could be one policy measures in which, like the lady from the Danish language is saying that nothing is done. So those kind of fundings can go to such areas. Second, the mentoring can happen, as she has said that the work has happened for some languages, some tools have been developed. I think this MetaNet initiative can really trigger that, because all those tools are being consolidated and being brought on the net. Some of those tools, they can be mentored to use those tools and create the basic resources, like they can get started with the corpora building, the morphological analysis, maybe the parsers, some tree parsing tree banks, like that. So the basic resources can be built, and then later on the technology development can happen with the help of computer scientists. So it's an interdisciplinary area. So within the country also you need to build an expertise where the interdisciplinary groups come together to work. So it's both ways. The European Union have to take certain initiatives, and at the country level you have to take certain initiatives. So then the agendas will match and can be taken forward.
Thanks. And one more, the last comment, please, or question.
Okay, just a little bit turning the discussion to a little bit practical sphere about where the language technology is actually applied. The technology is usually applied in some economical spheres, because there is particular reasons why we need the language technologies, not just only for societies here, but also for some business, for the government, etc. And interesting thing here is that different countries are developed in different ways. In some of the ways we have more transport, in some ways we have more automobile, some ways we have more cellular, etc. It's really different. And so exchanging with such kind of experience stimulates the translation itself, mostly stimulates the business translations. So one of the big questions, which I also found, for example, in the Eurolex conference last year, was so that the terminology usually started to be provided where the technology originated. And after that, it will be localized to other languages. So probably one of the stimulation for the funding inside the machine translation or other language resources lays in the area where it really could be applied on a country level in some specific areas. For example, would like to improve transport in Lithuania or transport in Estonia or some other ways, and cooperate, for example, with some other countries like Germany or some others. So what do you think about this? Could it be such kind of factors which really helps to also improve the language technologies?
Thanks. Would you like somebody to
A very short comment. Well, I think that everything what you told is makes impact on the implementation of the tasks of well, to preserve a language. But the main points I wanted to point out that nobody from these small countries, I think, asks for more money from European budget. No, we just want a common mechanism equal for every language in the European Union. And that's the main point. And we have to, say to the market players, in this way, maybe you can win even more money, because the mechanism could play the same role for all languages. And that's why I think this is the two main issues which will be also important as arguments for politicians. That would be my answer. Thank you.
So, please.
I think one of the things that politicians have to understand is that it is not enough to make programs. That it is necessary to continuously work on this. And there is one simple reason for that, and that is languages do change, and they change all the time. And if we don't make systems that can adapt to that, we will never finish our task, and the systems that we make today will not be useful in five years. So to make governments understand that this is a continuous process, like making next year's budget. I think that is the biggest task of all. And then, of course, the whole idea of intellectual property rights on text and the material that we're using is something that politicians should work on, and there should be a common framework for that. So I think, but the continuous effort has to be strengthened much more than it is today. So single programs are simply not enough.
So maybe on this we will finish our panel. I would cordially thank all the panelists and ask you to join with my thanks.